Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day one of IGDC 2019. I'm Vaishnavi, Managing Director of BigCode Games Private Limited, and I'll be moderating this panel today, Indian Gaming Market Status Quo. It gives me an immense pleasure to moderate this panel here today. We'll start off with the introduction. So, Shalu, you can start with the introduction.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to see people come in this early in the morning. I'm Shalu Jhunjhunwala. I lead gaming at Google, and really excited to be part of this panel today.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm Vikash Jaiswal, founder and CEO of Gametion Technologies. I'm a creator of a game massive hit, Ludo King. Thank you.
Hey guys, good morning. I'm Shubh. I'm one of the co-founders at Mobile Premier League. I take care of product operations and third-party developer relationships at Mobile Premier League.
Good morning. I'm Rajendaran. I'm from a company called Nextwave Multimedia. We are developers and publishers of the game World Cricket Championship 2.
Great. So we'll start off with a great, spectacular panel and wonderful audience here. So we all are very excited to know, what exactly is Indian gaming market and how the games are performing in India. We are all aware about emerging trends in the Indian gaming market. Like Indian has been an incredible surge on smartphones, affordability, and expanding internet usage by the users. It's an infinite industry growth that inspires developers across the country. Aren't we curious to know more about the panelists? Yeah. So hence, we have our panel members to share their secret insights about the Indian gaming market. Way forward, monetization. Monetization is one of the biggest challenges to the Indian market. For example, very popular games, if you see Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, the only 1% of their daily active users who do in-app purchases. So we have seen that game publishers are turning to more into ad-driven monetizations. So we would like to know what are your opinion and insights about monetizations in this Indian market. So Rajendran, I think.
Yeah, I think in India has for a long time very dependent on the ad monetization for revenue. Predominantly, if you look at the numbers, large numbers of games are ad monetized. But India is also at a transition point. I think we saw PUBG heavily IAP monetizing. So we are going to see a very rapid shift towards more IAP happening in the Indian market. Having said that, ad monetization is not a bad thing in the sense that, but then when you add monetization, you hit a ceiling very fast, especially with the ad rates in India. Probably if you have a global ad monetization, if your product were to have a global market, then you probably have much better. Maybe the ceiling is much higher. So, but I think to start off, I think ad monetization is not a bad thing. If you are looking at ad monetization, you need to have a much higher DAU, much higher retention. But I think if you want to grow beyond certain scale, I think one has to focus on in-app monetization, which means building kind of a mid-core game with a deeper engagement, much better game design and game economy. All these things come into play. So we start off with a lot of casual games, and I think casual plus a little more mid-core mechanic will kind of improve monetization. That's the journey we are also on. And I'm seeing more players working towards deeper engagement, working on game design and game economy these days.
Yes, interesting. How about you, Vikas? Your opinions about how is your monetization strategy?
In India, is very different than other top markets like US and Europe. In India, especially if you see, as you said, less than 1% monetization through IAP.
Yeah. Yes.
So in those top markets, IAP revenue is very significant amount to the total number of revenue generated through a game or app. In India, for example, in our game Ludo King, till last year, our revenue was mostly from advertisement. And our ranking was in IAP purchase, top grossing was around 250 in India.
True.
This year, we worked on IAP elements in our game, and we are now around 50 in top grossing in India. So I think in India, IAP is working slowly, and user want to spend. So my this is all from me.
Great. Shubh, I think you can tell us like how do you monetize? That is something with fantasy sports.
I think more than fantasy sports, as Rajendran said, that traditionally speaking, I mean, I think games have been able to monetize via ads as well as in-app purchases. Now we took a slightly different angle and approach to it. Is we saw that users want to compete with each other, and probably they want to in real time, and there has to be something for the user as well. So we built a casual esports platform for gamers where they can come play, compete against each other, and win real cash rewards. We built that keeping the user in mind. What it does is that it gets you users who are premium in nature to begin with, and it gives access to game developers wherein games can be monetized from day one because you have access to some of these premium users playing on the platform. For us as a platform, the focus is to give developers the distribution mechanism to reach to audiences that they have traditionally not been able to tap into. Yes, and that's how we monetize as such, and we give access to developers to monetize as well on the platform.
Interesting, interesting. Shalu, we would like to know your opinion about monetization in India.
So, before the panel started, the expectations from me were clearly stated that I'm supposed to throw data and stats. So I'm going to do just that. I think there are two things which I wanted to state. One, from an IAP angle, one of the things which should help enable that further is we've recently opened up UPI on Play Store, which makes it easier to drive IAP for developers. So that's something which is interesting to see how that plays out. Secondly, from an ad monetization standpoint, I think Rajendran alluded to that. In India, ad monetization seems to be a challenge because CPMs are really low at which we operate. But sometimes we tend to forget that India's tolerance for ads is way higher than any other market outside. Broadly, from a number standpoint, we see India's tolerance being 20x on an average higher for ads in India. So that kind of compensates for the low CPMs, and that's why models like Ludo King can be made very strongly on the back of ad monetization here alone.
So to add on to this thing, I would say like we have different formats for the monetization for ad driven, right? Like we have playable ads, we have banner ads, interstitial, rewarded videos. So what's your insight about what kind of ads would work really well for the games?
Yeah, I think what kind of ads will work for a game also depends on the game. Like for example, if you look at our cricket game, uh, when you're watching live cricket, actual cricket match that's happening out there, we are used to seeing television commercial in between every over. Every over, there's a bowler change. There's a ad break. So that kind of naturally fits into the virtual world where our game after every over we have a video ad or a interstitial graphic ad. So that kind of works. So for example, in our game, maybe during gameplay banner may not work, but banner may work in Ludo King because the format allows it. So I think what has worked very well for us is the interstitial and the rewarded video. So we have a lot of content, in the game which one needs to unlock. We use rewarded video mechanics. So it really depends on the game. Some of the things that we are using may not be very relevant for a casual game. So it really depends on the game, and then what is the best way to use the game to generate revenue. I think it depends on the game.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Shalu, we would like to know this from you. In past few years, we have seen a lot of growth in Indian gaming, right? Gaming industry is just growing very fast. So we want to know how have you seen India's potential as gaming market growth?
Thanks. I think before I get to gaming, thought I'll just give a few insights around how are we seeing the internet economy in India really take off. So, there are three key trends which are driving this whole digital disruption in India. Firstly, a lot of you all must be aware, we have 450 million internet users today in India, with 350 million of them on the smartphone, and this number changes every time I do a panel. It keeps getting updated. I think secondly, which is really, really interesting, is the amount of data consumption which is happening in India now. Indian users on an average are consuming 11 GB of data per month, which is higher than most developed nations' data consumption patterns. Secondly, we have a significant millennial population in India. 60% of our workforce is going to be millennials. And consumption expenditures are increasing continuously. So the confluence of all these trends make India very poised for this disruption that's happening and is going to only accelerate in the future. And now if I look at it purely from a gaming lens, the first industry to really get the advantage of this disruption was video as a platform. We saw YouTube see exponential growth. We saw OTT platforms see growth. TikTok is seeing massive growth. And I think the second industry to really get the benefit of this is gaming. We have 300 million odd active gamers in India today already. Just from a Google standpoint, we're seeing 2x growth in searches related to gaming on Google already. And a really interesting point is that 55% of these searches are actually coming outside the top 6 metros, which truly shows that gaming is a Bharat phenomena. It's not just a top income, top bracket phenomena in India anymore. And I think largely we're seeing a huge consumption of gaming-related content on YouTube now. So gaming is becoming a key pillar of content consumption too. So I think it's really, really inspiring and interesting to see how all of these things play out and only grow in the future.
Impressive. It gives an inspiration, actually. So, yes, Shubh, also I would like to know from you, like, what's Indian potential, in terms of the fantasy sports?
I think with respect to fantasy sports, I think we have seen tremendous growth in the last couple of years, and I think fantasy sports as a phenomena traditionally was associated with only cricket till now. But I think with a lot more broadcasters coming in, investing into different sports and different sports leagues, we have kabaddi coming in, we have pro wrestling league, we have badminton, we have a lot of other sports coming in. Is what it is fueling is also fueling fantasy sports as such, which is a skill-based game wherein people can come and build teams through the research and compete in the game. So that's something which is very encouraging as such from perspective of that it's not just cricket anymore. To be honest, like this year, kabaddi was a big sleeper hit for us, given there's a massive adoption in North India. So what we are seeing is tremendous growth in the fantasy sports gaming as such. Yeah.
What DAUs do you see? Like,
I can't disclose my DAUs.
yeah, you can generify, say.
But I think close to around 100 million registered users are now playing fantasy sports.
Wow.
So we are hitting that kind of number. Frankly speaking, because of sports being involved in that, that's something which naturally comes to a lot of people. I think in gaming itself also, like Rajendaran will agree, cricket, he runs a cricket game. So sports is something which naturally comes to people in India, and cricket helps a lot. Yeah.
Great. Moving on to the next question. And Vikash, my question would be for you. Multiplayer formats provides an opportunity for social interaction and higher engagement. So the KPMG reports indicates that 1/3 of Indian gamers are engaged with the multiplayer formats. So what's your take on this? How do you connect this with your game, Ludo King?
Yeah, I'm totally agree with the KPMG report. And in Ludo King, I will tell you the numbers. We have more than 50% players who plays online multiplayer. For us, we are developing games from last 4 years. And if we have to develop a non-online multiplayer game, it is something for us using computer or laptop without internet.
Yes.
So, yes, multiplayer is, through multiplayer, players can connect through the other person, through their friends, families, And here, there is more engagement, more, I mean, I can also say that online multiplayer games has more game life than non-multiplayer games.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I'd like to add something to that. Like
Yes.
I think given the internet penetration and good 4G and good smartphones, I think multiplayer adds a lot of value to the game. As Vishal is saying, is the fact that what it does is it adds that special element to the game, which is not against playing against a bot or something, because there's more fun playing against a real human being, to be honest.
Nice. So Rajendran, even WCC has multiplayer formats in the game. So what has changed? I mean, what metrics do you see? Like, what changes have you seen being in a multiplayer format?
Before that, I think, India has had Carom multiplayer, India had Ludo King multiplayer, we had Teen Pati multiplayer. See, all these were turn-based multiplayers games. That is, you play the game and then you wait for the other person to play. Whereas in cricket, you can't do that. I mean, as the person is bowling, you have to, fraction of a second react to the ball. And so doing multiplayer in cricket is a very scary thing, and we put it off for a long time because we were not sure the internet and all those mobile internet will it be stable.
Absolutely.
So it's a finally we launched multiplayer WCC Rivals and also multiplayer on WCC2. We were so nervous and scared. We went on beta for a long time. Finally, to see that it's all working smoothly on mobile internet, synchronous multiplayer, very good adoption among our users. Is a very good indication of where India is heading, because the infrastructure bottleneck is kind of sorted out.
Yeah.
So this is very encouraging, for developers like us. And we have seen with the introduction of the multiplayer that the average session times among the core group that use the multiplayer have gone up. The average number of sessions have gone up. Right. So I think it's a very good sign that a full synchronous multiplayer cricket game we are able to work. It's even harder to build than a shooter game, because if internet dropped for a fraction of a second,
Right.
the person playing a shooter game would think he missed his
Exactly.
target. But here it's like the fielder missed the ball, and so many
Yeah,
complications.
leading a user
this thing.
bad behavior.
Yeah,
Bad behavior to the game.
and it's working fine. Is a very good sign of where India is heading, and we got the infrastructure sorted out, and the digital, the other means of payment that UPI payments that Google has, and I think these are very good signs for the industry.
Great. So Shalu, how is your, what strikes you when it comes to the multiplayer format in the games?
Yeah, I think I completely second what the panel said. I think just one additional point from my side is India's social fabric is always to stay connected with friends, family. Let's go to traditional aspects of entertainment in India. TV viewing, which was the first form of entertainment in India, is still a family viewing experience. The whole family likes to sit together and do it. And that's, I think, something that's translating to gaming and helping this whole multiplayer space take off, because people like like playing with friends, like playing with people, like recognition, which multiplayer gaming brings to surface. So I think, I think this place is really interesting to watch out for.
Nice. So, yeah, Vikas.
As Rajendran said, cricket multiplayer is not possible in cricket, so we are soon releasing cricket games with multiplayer. And another thing, still we have approximately 30 to 40% users from India. They are on 2G network. In that area, I think it needs to work. If the penetration is there 3G or 4G, we can monetize much better than that. So still we have a users more than 30% from India which are on 2G networks. So this is the current scenario.
Yes, yes. Great. Thank you for sharing. It's quite interesting move for multiplayer, because the developer would really want to know, what kind of games they should make. They should directly go for multiplayer games or, the single player. So yeah, it's very informative. So not to forget, point of our very own KPI is retention. So even today, it's a very, the key point that developer don't see retention in their games. And so we would like to know what are the tactics and game mechanics that you would apply to retain and engage users in your game?
I think, as far as retention goes, I think one of the things that we always believed that the games, should have legs on its own before you even start thinking about a retention mechanic or retention, in the sense that your core loop should be good, and then it should be fun and enjoyable to play. Otherwise, very you probably need to fix some basic elements in the game. So once you think the game has some legs on its own, that's when you start thinking about retention mechanic. Is what we kind of believe in. So the retention mechanic could be, I always believe that if your game is slightly on the mid-core side, which has a lot of depth in the game, and then your retention is a lot more natural, and there are a lot of retention mechanics that one can use, like the game progression is a way to retain this thing. Drops in the game, everyday drops, weekly, monthly, 30-day drops could be a retention mechanic. The other thing is also that your game socially connecting with other gamers, like we have gangs of cricket, which you can form gangs with the other people, other gamers, and you can progress much faster in the leaderboard, win more coins and XPs. There are also things like, a challenger friend. A lot of social connect is what we do currently to, retain the user over a longer period of time.
Great. Vikas, what strikes you for this retention?
Regarding retention, I tell you, recently I read somewhere the day one retention, the benchmark number is approximately 35 to 40% day one retention. So I will suggest those who wants to correct their number, they should first consider, to correct their game engine, core gameplay. If the core gameplay, if that game is not addictive, then the D1 can't be reached. That number, that is 30 to 40%, 35 to 40%. In our game, Ludo King, currently we have a D1 retention is 47%. That is a good number. And if developer want to correct their long-term retention, then the number, I think benchmarking number is something 4 to 6%, D28 retention. So, and in our game, the D28 retention is 10%. That is also a good number. So my suggestion is for long-term retention, one should consider on game elements like daily bonus, spin wheel, surprise gifts to users, push notifications. So these are my suggestions regarding retention.
How about the content in the game? Game mechanics, yes, it do matters. How about the content creation? I mean, you see, various games in India, how they develop. So what content or what standard should be, for a developer to think that, okay, this is the standard where the content quality and this should be the concept, or how do you, give an idea about it?
I've seen lots of games daily is released on daily basis, but yes. I really wonder why developers are copy and pasting the games of or do another games. Just discover or just invent a own idea. For example, Ludo King is all we have played in childhood, but when we started making this game, at that time, 1 or 2 games was there on Play Store, on Ludo. If you play that game at that time, those games are very uninteresting. So we decided to minimize the game time, engagement thing. One thing I removed, changed the rules of the Ludo is, we are if you play Ludo King, we are not accumulating the dices. If you get a 6, just move your token. So is this way, opponent is also engaged at that time. Another idea we implemented in Ludo King is we given the 4 dice pads. That was idea. And I think in those 2 ideas, the game is a hit. So I really suggest to new developers to work on new ideas because idea is money.
Absolutely, that's great. Shubh, we also want to know, like, how do you retain your users?
So for us, as a platform, completely different from an individual game. What matters is how frequently are we refreshing content, because people are looking for fresh content
Yeah,
at all points of time. So that's
true.
something which is critical to us. But from a game developer perspective, coming onto a platform, I think a couple of key things, as the panel is suggesting, is there has to be focus on the core loop, because
Absolutely.
that's something which is super key to your game, that adds to the longevity of the game, because people should be coming back to your game again and again.
True.
As a platform, we invest a lot into data science for defining user journeys, that
Yes.
what does the user see on day 0, or what does the user see on day 7, how do we progress the user onto the platform where he's seeing different kind of games, different kind of tournaments, different kind of formats. So for us, what we've tried to do is innovate into a lot of competitive formats which are different. So we probably have close to around 10 different formats on the game. So for example, on a normal day, you get to compete against a person in let's say in a real-time multiplayer battle. But on, let's say, on a weekend, there's a battle arena which gets hosted where probably 10,000 people will come and play together to probably beat each other on a leaderboard. So they're like playing the whole day, and that's how we try to do it. So there's a lot of scheduling, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of user journey that we invest into as such.
Great. Yes, Rajan.
On the retention, one other thing that one can do is a lot of live ops to keep the content refreshed. We do a lot of esports events, online competitions, so that's another way to, having planned live ops. We kind of automated some amount of live ops so that the people get something fresh every month. So for example, the retention among our audience who play multiplayer, we have a day 30 of 25%. Our day 1 overall for generally for our game is over 50%, well over 50%, and our day 30 is 11%.
That's a great number, actually.
I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think, if you have to benchmark against the global, I think we should look at 15 or 20% as a day 30 as a thing is what I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, moving on to our next question. Yeah, before that, I also want to know Shalu to talk about, how what's you see all the stats. So, what retention, really Indian market should look at, and what's the benchmark from your end?
No real benchmarks. I think they're the developers. They're the ones who set the benchmarks in the future, and we'll follow that. But I think just from a pure ecosystem standpoint, I think the KPMG report, which Google co-published, kind of says that one of the key barriers to retention was data consumption and the cost of data consumption, which is something which has been largely solved for at an ecosystem level. So hopefully that'll be an enabler to some of these things that we're trying to solve for, apart from everything that the developers are doing from a content standpoint.
Great, great. So next, move on to the next question. Talking about fantasy sports, we all know how fantasy sports, players, they're growing very fast in India, and esports has become a well-established worldwide phenomenon. So what scope do you see? I mean, what India takes as in fantasy sports?
Are you talking about fantasy sports or esports?
Fantasy
Fantasy
sports.
sports. I think to be honest, fantasy sports is at the cusp of probably growing into a very big industry, owing to the large number of users that we have seen over the past couple of years growing. And as I said earlier as well, I mean, it was traditionally, to be honest, was considered more of even, you can say, from a business standpoint, an IPL only industry. But now it's not just IPL. I think we have a lot of local leagues in which people are playing. Like you have Tamil Nadu Premier League coming in, you have even international Premier Leagues coming. So people play a lot in these leagues as well. People are following the sport a lot more than what they traditionally used to do. I think that's also because of the fact that there are a lot of ways in which you can consume content now. So people can research teams much better. People are going out and watching, given broadcasters like digital broadcasters like Hotstar covering leagues from all over the world has actually helped the game a lot. So I think there's a lot of potential going further now because of that. It's not just only a cricket game. For example, we just saw basketball coming to India, and we're launching that. Now, it's for that you have to register a team at 7 in the morning, but still people come and play the game at 7 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, so that's healthy signs of a growing industry. Yeah.
Very sportive. Yeah, yeah, Rajendra. You would like to say something
On
about?
the esports front, we have seen a lot of traction, in esports in India. I mean, there's esports happening almost every week, some part of the country, and some of these events are very big. We had a whole stadium, Nordwin had done this PUBG event at Delhi, and whole stadium getting filled up. This is happening now on a regular basis. With the opportunity that is emerging, we built this product called WCC Rivals, which is in beta, which is wholly a esports game in the sense that we have also, with the game, we are trying to kind of democratize esports in the sense that we're building in all the controls and back-end mechanic so that anybody can conduct esports. It could be family event or event within the company. So we see a lot of potential in the esports area.
Nice.
I'd like to add to
Yes.
that as well. So traditionally, Mobile Premier League is an esports platform for casual mobile gamers. So what we try to do is exactly as Rajendaran said, is democratize esports for casual games, be it even a game like Ludo. Or be it even a game of cricket in which probably a user has to bat or something like that. We believe that I think esports is probably also gonna come a lot online and not just offline, wherein you are having events in offline places. Like for example, we conducted a chess esports event wherein it was just a democratized event as such. We didn't even go out and market it a lot, and we ended up having 10 to 12 good chess masters playing, and actually a potential grandmaster got beaten by a grandmaster got beaten by a potential grandmaster on the platform with some I think 90,000 people playing for 12 hours a game of speed chess. So I think there's a lot of potential in converting a lot of traditional games into esports. And I think Mobile Premier League, to be honest, stands for that.
Of course,
Yeah.
users are very serious about. Yeah. So last but not the least, the potential of hyper casual games in India. We see that hyper casual games are doing really well with the Western market. So how, like Asia has just begun to follow this trend. How do you look at hyper casual games?
I think everyone loves to play a hyper casual game, and these terms came, in 2017, according to Wikipedia. Hyper casual game. Before that, I think most of the gamers here already played Flappy Birds or Color Switch. So those games are very easy to play. No need to learn how to play. Very instantly can be played. With those games, ideas should be unique. Otherwise, hyper casual games can be made in a day or 2 day or in a week. It's a very small games, but thing is, it should have a good idea. That should be clicked in the market. So we also released a game, Color King, and its numbers are really good. It's doing good. So I personally love to play hyper casual games. Yeah, thanks.
Nice, nice. So over to the audience if someone has
Yeah,
questions.
great. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sangeeta. I'm from KPMG, so I was especially pleased to hear our name being quoted for many of the data sources here. We've actually published a paper recently which said that gaming was the fastest growing sector within media entertainment in FY 2019, and we've been very bullish about it even for the next 5 years. What I really wanted to ask you is we're seeing a lot of this growth in actually number of users rather than ARPU itself. So I know that was addressed earlier in terms of it being a predominantly ad-driven market. But I wanted to ask you if you feel that, the fact that we have a lot more smaller players coming in, but the ecosystem is growing with the entry of Paytm with Sony. So how do you feel the entry of these larger corporates into gaming is going to change the sort of the landscape for maybe the small emerging independent developers?
So you had two questions, how the large players coming into the market will change, and the other one was the
On the
ARPU
ARPU, yeah.
being low. So I think a large player coming into the market, I feel is a good thing, because I think more money would get, invested in this. Probably smaller companies will get acquired. I think it's a good thing, if a lot bigger players coming in, and it will only accelerate and you help India achieve its full potential, much faster. I think it's a very good thing. About the ARPU thing is, I feel right now is we are in a transition phase. A lot of us are realizing, that ad monetization can only go so far. And ad monetization is really the easy route to take, because you don't have to, invest in game economy. We never had game economy guy in the company. I mean, it's only 1-2 years we're having a game economy guy, game design guy. So now we've realized, how do you build, that I think that transition is there across many companies. We have realized the value of IEP, and we realized only so much you could grow for using the ad monetization route. And I think we've all correcting that, mistake, and, I think that's what I have to say.
Yes, any more questions?
Hi, my name is Eve Chang. I'm with Emoji Studios, who are makers of Temple Run 1 and Temple Run 2. As you guys mentioned, 30% of the users currently are still on 2G network, and even though the multiplayer appetite is there, the connection may not be there. What is your thought on asynchronous multiplayer instead of a real-time multiplayer?
So are you asking about the networks people are using?
No, I'm saying asynchronous, not non-real-time multiplayer is an appetite for that for the Indian market.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, in India, I think, one of the points I was making, like synchronous multiplayer, the cricket game, people are playing across India, rural India, urban India, and the mobile network are able to provide good experience. So, though it may not be at the levels that we would want to see, there are disruptions that are happening, but it is much, much better. We've seen PUBG, again requires is a synchronous real-time multiplayer like the cricket one. And I think that the infrastructure bottleneck is almost gone. It's still there in terms of, sometimes, it's not, there are some issues, but mostly it's not, it's got much, much better.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I said at 30%. It doesn't mean in those area 3G are not there. I mean to say, we have seen, even when I visit a remote area, there 3G is available. But I don't know, when I see the, user's phone, and they tell us they don't have, they don't never seen the advertisement in the game. Then I check their network connection, and in that case, we see they are very in the, outside of the tower or something like this. So they are very, especially Ludo King, our user base, 30-40% are from remote area. So that was what I mean.
Yeah, I think
So,
I think it depends upon the game. It completely depends upon the game. So, for example, if you're building a game which is targeted towards more millennial audiences and all that, which will have access to 4G or which will have access to good smartphones, like on our platform, we see the game which monetizes the most is actually the sync multiplayer game. So, I think there is appetite for sync as well as async multiplayer games as such. Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a
Any
question,
more
Kushal here. Question is to Shalu. So today, in-app purchase is one of the most prominent channels for monetization for developers. And on the other hand, we are seeing apps like Tinder and Fortnite, coming out of that commission which Google charges around 30%. So is there any scope that this percentage cut will go down going forward, the way the scale up is happening and the way developers are, increasing in scale. So do you see this commission going down?
So maybe not the best platform to comment on it, but I mean, these policies and decisions are taken at a much larger scale. We generally work in guidance with our global policies in these areas. So depending on that, decisions will be taken in India.
And how other panel members feel about it? I mean, what's your take on that?
Sorry, you mean lowering the in-app margin in Google? I would definitely love that because it's, see, actually you pay lower income tax because income tax you pay after, subtracting all your expenses. But this is a much bigger tax. I wish it could be 10 or 15%. I think 30% is a lot, but yeah.
That's an interesting question and answer both. Thank you everybody.
Guys, I know that's all the time we have.
We are
Guys,
at
thank
the
you
end.
so much.
So.
And thank you so much. A big round of applause for all the panelists here. Thank you.